is reasoning from the lesser to the greater. It's taking small pieces. It's like gathering together all the puzzle pieces of life and of the universe and snapping them together and attempting to see what the big picture is.
Right, but isn't induction though imply that in order to put anything together, we had to know that the thing in the past will still work in the future? In other words, gravity has always worked the same way as gravity has always worked. We have no reason to believe it will change. So can atheists justify induction?
Well, that's the exact thing about foundations. Every human being has axioms that they're standing on, foundations, assumptions about reality that they depend on. Each one of us depend on our assumptions about reality, otherwise known as axioms, to carry on our daily lives. I mean, the simplest things. When you make your breakfast in the morning, you assume that heat will still cook eggs like it did the day before. But like you said, without having a foundational principle that comes before all of these atoms and molecules, we can't really have justifiable knowledge that heat will still cook eggs tomorrow like it did today. There's no way to actually come to that conclusion, scientifically or otherwise.
Now, that's very fascinating because atheists have a little bit of a problem. And I've been saying this. This is why I don't think we should give atheists a platform, to be honest with you. And not because they're not... And by the way, if there's any atheists listening out there, I know you're pulling hair out of your head. Look, we're not saying you can't have morals or you can't know induction or you can't... The point is you do know them, but your worldview is... And not you, please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. Please, I'm giving you a disclaimer. But the worldview itself doesn't hold any water to reality. It's dumb by definition. In other words, it doesn't obtain logical knowledge. Let me give you an example. In atheism, if you're a materialist, and Adam, please chime in here. In atheism, you can't guarantee that something is going to be the same as it was in the past. Everything is constantly changing with evolution. But that includes your morals, your logic, your math, and your science. So you can't just pick and choose which ones are not going to be the same. And if all we are is a random of molecules bumping into each other, Adam, is there any reason to believe that we could build a bridge with those premises?
Chad, that right there is the death of atheism. It's plain and simple. If you cannot justify the uniformity of nature and the reason that things carry on, you have absolutely no foundation for science. And really, you have no foundation for the reasoning required to argue for your atheism. It's a self-defeating idea.
Right, because if we're really just somebody made this point. I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was Frank Turek or if it was Jeff Durbin. But he says, "Okay, we're going to have a little debate, everybody. Little debate. On my right, I got Dr. Pepper. Give Dr. Pepper a round of applause. Okay, we got Dr. Pepper, and over here we have let's see. We have I don't know, Sprite. All right, so let's give Sprite a round of applause. There we go. There's my little clapping. Now, what we're going to do is between Sprite and Dr. Pepper, they're going to have a debate. And the way they're going to have a debate is we're going to shake those 2-liter bottles really hard and release the caps. That right there is materialism debating. Fizzing. I got to know something from your perspective, and help me understand this, because I think this is foolish. How is there any debate when all we are is brains fizzing?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's the thing about it is, of course, the atheist is not simply a bottle of Dr. Pepper or a bottle of Sprite that's fizzing out over the top, even though, in a very real way, they're demanding that that's what we call ourselves. We're just atoms and molecules. There's nothing more to us. Our minds are simply the product of chemical reactions happening. We are not actually anything more than meat and bones and blood in motion according to the fixed laws of chemistry and physics. And if that's what you believe, that you, a human being, truly are, then what in the world are you doing trying to figure out the mysteries of the universe?
No. Well, I'm not laughing. I'm not laughing at them. I'm laughing at that worldview because you're absolutely right. And you know what's fascinating? And I mentioned this on to when Kent Hovind was with me last week. We were talking about atheism, and I said, "Did you know that Richard Dawkins, who is the leading atheist of the world, goes all over the place, says there is no purpose. There's no purpose to the universe. And by the way." He's absolutely right. If we come from the universe and all we are is a product of evolution, then there really isn't any purpose. That's true. If we were evolved in that way. I don't believe that, and neither do you. We believe that God created us with purpose and with a plan. But I digress. Let me go back here. If, in fact, Richard Dawkins has no purpose, and neither do we, what in the world are they doing writing any books?
Exactly.
Why should
I watch Richard Dawkins? I watch Richard Dawkins on Twitter, and he's constantly ranting and raving about the immorality of religious
What
people.
Immorality? I thought you said there was no cruels and kinds.
What are you talking about, Richard?
Jeez.
This is the same man who has said that we are nothing more than DNA robots. Our only purpose is to propagate our DNA to a next generation.
Well, wait a minute. If that's true, then what are we doing condemning child rapists?
Yeah.
Why are we condemning anybody if all we are is DNA bumping into each other or dancing to the, as he brilliantly put it, bumping or dancing to the sound of our own DNA? Why would anybody care about putting anybody to death in the death penalty or going to war or anything? It really should just be pointless, right? Or purposeless.
Well, you would expect that if the man, Richard Dawkins or Lawrence Krauss, any of these men, if they truly believed what they were saying, that they would at once stop complaining about the different moral teachings of the different religions and people of the earth. But they are acting like men and women who know that there's a standard of morality that comes from outside of the human race that's imposed upon us from a lawgiver, and they're complaining that other people are not living up to that standard. It really is a sight to behold when an atheist is preaching good and evil and actually angry or has a sense of emotional fervor, as Richard Dawkins does nearly every day on social media. It really is sad. It's sad to see the foolishness that comes upon us when we attempt to push God out of our knowledge. Don't you think, Chad?
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. Aren't these guys scientists? I mean, guys like Lawrence Krauss, isn't he an astrobiologist or something like that? I mean, his entire agenda is to perpetrate some sort of science agenda to teach us all that science is good, but then the same guy is saying that nothing really is nothing, but there could be something in the nothing that we don't know about, and sometimes nothing could mean something. I mean, honestly, it just sounds dumb. I don't know how else to say it without, being mean in some way. I don't know how else you could say it, but their worldview is absolutely messed up. Hey, this is $1,000,000% Radio. I got with me Adam today. We're talking about a debate. And we're waiting for some calls. I saw somebody try to call in, but then they hung up right away. Can science prove God's existence? Or does it disprove God's existence? Or you can ask it another way. Does science need God? And when we come back, after I play my little ditty again, we're going to answer that question. Hey, if you want to call into the show, the number is 646-595-3275. That's 646-595-3275. And if you're on hold right now, I see you, 937. Just stay on hold for a few seconds. I'm going to take a little bit of a water break. I think that Adam wants to too. And we look forward to hearing what you have to say. This is $1,000,000% Radio on the CC Radio Network. We'll be right back. All right, so we're back, and just had to get a sip of water. Sorry, that might be annoying to some of you guys, but I don't know. I don't want to sippy sip in your ear. Would that be annoying to you, Adam, if I drink in your ear?
I probably wouldn't be your friend anymore.
You really are a dirtbag. You really are.
Well, that's what they say.
Come on, you know I'm kidding with you. And by the way, he's a very good friend of mine. We teach at the same place at our church, and we're really excited to be able to be here teaching you about evangelism, and particularly this particular topic. Does science prove God's existence, or does it not prove God's existence? I want to... I definitely want to hear from you. If you want to call the show, it's area code 646-595-3275. And it looks like, Adam, we have a caller. So what I'm going to do is put him on so we can chat with him, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, 937. I'm going to put you on here in a second, but I'm going to tell you, please do not swear. The moment you swear, I shut you off. I don't even ask you one time. I do not want you to swear. Okay? 937, are you on?
Hi, this is Jeff from Washington, D.C. How are you?
Good, Jeff. Nice to talk to you. This is Chad, the Challenger with $1,000,000% Radio. I got with me Adam on, and what can we do for you today?
Well, actually, it's funny. I was listening to your channel, and I couldn't help but think about... I used to live right next door to Christopher Hitchens, actually, right here in Washington, D.C.
How about that?
And I don't know if you're familiar with Chris Hitchens.
Oh, yes.
But if Chris were alive today and he were on the phone with you, he would say that science doesn't prove either, if God exists or not. Scientists have found that, what humans are made up of is energy, essentially.
Okay.
And that's about it.
What did you say?
It doesn't really prove the existence of a higher being.
Okay, let me ask you, what was your name again? I apologize. I didn't hear your first name there again.
Oh, yes, it's Jeff.
Jeff. Okay, Jeff. Nice to meet you. And I have a very short attention span, so I get your name wrong. I apologize. Jeff, let me ask you this question. Before we start getting into this little talk here, can I ask you what your background is? What is your background? Are you an atheist? Are you somebody spiritual? Where do you stand?
Well, I think I'm sort of agnostic.
Agnostic, okay.
I'm a scientist, actually, who works in mostly in the medical arena.
Okay.
But I study mostly how people make decisions in high-stakes, time-pressure conditions. So I'm actually a cognitive scientist. And this idea of understanding human behavior and how we think and how we rationalize things is sort of my area of expertise.
Jeff, can I jump in for a second here and ask a question?
Go right ahead. Go right ahead, Adam. Yep, I'm right there with you.
Hi, Jeff. I'm Adam. I also I've dabbled in science. Never went anywhere with it in my career, but I don't know if you heard earlier in the program, Chad had asked me, can science prove God? And I agreed with what you just said. Science doesn't prove God's existence or anything beyond really the physical cosmos. What I had said, though, and I'd like to hear your response on this, is that without God, without that absolute unchanging being, there is no proof that science is valid in discovering reality. Does that make sense the way I stated it?
I think that the need to believe in something greater than us is always a human trait. The need for explanation, the need to